This is the wide world of woo. We are back. Tyler here. Andy, what's up?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I was just wondering, should we do Mace or a Stained impression to bring us back?
It's been a while.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for humoring me and not forcing me to say it.
Yeah.
My Stained impression is terrible. Actually, most of my impressions are terrible, but sometimes you just the urge is too much to resist. Anyways, it's been a while, but like Mace said, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
Uh,
Here
I
we
was
go.
wondering. Yeah, I was wondering what the Mace one was, and that was a good. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tie Harlem World or what would be another Money Comes and Goes. I mean, that's always true. But we are back. It's been 10 months, I believe. I
Yeah.
believe it was November of 2022 last time we got together. So it has been a while, but good to be back. Good to be chatting with you.
Agreed. It's been a long time. I've missed this actually.
Yeah, me
So
too. Me too. So much. So excited to talk about our episode for the day. Return to the 36 chambers. Wow. Return to the 36 chambers. That is kind of relevant given our long absence.
yeah, and considering our first episode was the 36
36
Chambers.
chambers. Oh, it's got really meta really fast.
Yeah, it did.
Well, this is an album that you know much better than I do, so I'm looking forward to hearing your insights. You've been listening to it a lot longer, at least. I've d dove into it as much as I could, and I've been listening to it for a few years. It's not like it's my first time hearing it, but still very excited to talk about this. Is it too much of a spoiler to say iconic, legendary? What do you think?
I think we can say that right off the
Okay.
bat.
All right.
Yeah,
No one's going to be thrown off if we give that away at the beginning.
not at all. If they don't know, they'll find out.
Exactly. So this was the second of the Wu-Tang solo albums, and it came out on March 28th, 1995. The first, of course, being Method Man's To Cal, which we've already done an episode on. So for those interested, check it out. The original pressing had 15 tracks produced by the RZA, Fourth Disciple, True Master, even ODB himself, which I didn't really know he did much producing. Did you know that?
No, I actually had learned that while doing some of the research for this.
Yeah.
I did not, like, in all the years I'd been listening to this, I had no idea. So,
Yep. Um, According to the Rhino record label, which handled the re-release of this,
yeah.
it says it didn't go platinum until 2020, which was kind of surprising to me. But also it was really hard to find out when it went platinum. Like I asked Chat GPT and it said like 1995, like a month after it was released, but couldn't tell me where it came up with that figure. So,
Okay.
did you come across any like sales figures?
I had the same experience. I was trying to find that information, and it was actually pretty tough. Um, but I came to the conclusion that either it went platinum back then because I do remember it being a very popular album when I was like pretty young, and but then I also thought to myself like maybe it was like a Clerks of albums or something where it was just not like popular and then it became a cult classic or something. I don't know.
Right, right. Yeah, hard to say. And it could have been just like, somewhere in between, like very like it sold really well at the beginning and then dropped off and just took a while. I think we talked about Raekwon, the purple tape didn't go platinum until like I don't 20 years later, 25 years later, something like that.
That was
Um,
true. Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, if anyone has definitive figures on the date, send them our way. But then I was thinking, maybe it really only did have two singles, as far as I'm aware. Brooklyn Zoo, which was released first, oddly, and then, of course, Shimmy Shimmy Ya, which I think should have been the lead single, was released 5 months later,
Yep.
which would go on to be listed on VH1's 100 Greatest Songs of Hip Hop at number 59. I personally think that one's more of a lead single, but they're both good. Um, and the singles are also the album's only videos, although there are two different versions of Brooklyn Zoo's video. There's the regular and then the Chinatown version, along with Shimmy Shimmy Ya. Um, had you seen these videos before, or did you get a chance to watch them now?
I wish that I don't want to say this publicly, but I had to be because of just how busy I've been. I've had to be a little bit underprepared for this, but I have seen the videos, but just
Okay.
not in a long time. And I actually remember seeing two different versions of that video. Now that you mention it,
Yeah. So the regular, or like I don't know, the normal one is like, I thought kind of what you would expect from like a Wu-Tang affiliate or Wu-Tang member, of that time, like gritty and, kind of like some black and white, or just like, um, really, kind of urban and, I don't know. The other one, the Chinatown version, was like kind of cinematic. So there was like more actors and like going through a plot, and I thought that worked okay. I don't know if do you remember liking one or the other?
uh, I think I remember liking the kind of more gritty one when I like had watched them. So that
Okay.
was the Shimmy Ya video. I remember like seeing a lot more than the other
Yeah.
ones. Yeah.
Right. And the Shimmy Shimmy Ya felt like, it was like made to be a popular single, like with the disco or funk or like that, those scenes, like kind of
Hmm.
party scenes, like it was made to be played on, MTV or something like that. And
For sure.
I think it's okay. Like I can't decide if I really like those like party scenes mixed in with the other parts that are a little bit more, um, just kind of lo-fi-ish video.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I guess it just ODB, he
Right.
was just such a character. I
Yeah.
feel like who knows like what happened in the making of those videos, to be honest. I
Yeah.
know it was around a point where they had a little bit of money behind them again, or for the first time, like
Right.
when they started. Yeah. So, and I'm sure with the money you made from Tikal and, and all the other projects and stuff that had been out at that time, they probably were like trying to push it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it
Exactly.
was also a very difficult album and release.
Oh,
just
right. Right.
just dealing with ODB in general.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Getting him to show up to photo shoots and video shoots, and yeah, and do all the promotion necessary. And yeah, that's a great point. Maybe they're like, we need this to have some like really accessible, like pop oriented elements, in addition to the music of the song to, make some parts of the video match. Um, yeah, that's a great point. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Any other thoughts on the videos?
I should probably go back and rewatch them. But I do remember seeing them vaguely. Like I've seen them since this, but as an adult. But I remember being a kid and seeing them, and I remember kind of instantly being drawn to like ODB
Hmm.
because of like just his character,
Uh-huh.
essentially.
Yeah. The close-up shot of the gold grill.
Yeah, that I
Def
actually really remember. Yeah, like I
right.
do remember that.
Just gets burned into your memory.
Yeah.
So the title of the album comes from the 1980 kung fu film Return to the 36th Chamber, which is part of the 36th Chamber of Shaolin trilogy. I have not seen that, sadly. I did, let's see. I tried to watch some of the associated films with some of the albums. I watched the Killer, no, not the Killer. Um, what went with Raekwon's album? Okay, so I guess it was The Killer. Yeah, it was so it was The Killer,
Yep.
which was ironic or not ironic. It was a nice coincidence or an intentional tie-in with the 36 Chambers, Enter the 36 Chambers skit, The Killer Tape, where Method Man and Raekwon are arguing over who had the killer tape. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I watched that movie in preparation for our Only Built for Cuban Links episode. And I think I watched Liquid's like Legend of the Liquid Sword,
Okay.
which was just ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. Nothing like the kind of like gritty crime mobster, whatever you want to call it, narrative of Liquid Swords, the album. But very interesting and entertaining. Um, yeah. But anyways, no time to watch Return to the 36th Chamber. I don't know why I can't say that. But any other background or like folklore you know about this album or the making of it or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I kind of knew some stuff before, but and I know it's a little bit more glorified through that show, but the last season of that show was it is the final season actually, which kind of sucks, but they cover some of the solo albums, so they cover Liquid Swords and stuff like that, and then they cover this one, and it was kind of interesting because they kind of go into detail about how he wanted the record to kind of be like when you would sit like I liked this element a lot because my family used to listen to a lot of like comedy vinyl when I
Uh-huh.
was a kid and
Okay.
because you know back then we still like some people still actually had record players like
Right.
because it was a normal thing.
Right. Not because
Yeah,
they were trying to be cool.
yeah. And so we would do that a lot. And then when they kind of dug into that element on the show where he was talking about like listen, like they even say it on the album, or I think he says it on his next album, but Eddie Murphy taught me back at the house. Like that's kind of where the ideas of this record came from. He wanted it to be kind of a comedy record and
Hmm.
kind of part rap, part comedy,
Yep.
just basically to show his whole personality because he wasn't like any of the other members. He was a hype man. He was a rapper. He was an entertainer. He was Ace on Unique, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That, yep. Good
I guess I
point.
thought that element was very, very interesting.
Yeah,
It made me look at this record a lot differently because I was like, well, I guess I've always looked at it that way. I just never thought about it.
right. Yeah, now that you say that, I see it a lot more clearly as that, and it's kind of obvious when someone says it to you, or because he even mentions at the beginning like something about blowfly, like I stole this from
Yeah,
blowfly or something,
that's true.
as part of that long monologue at the beginning, which
Yeah.
totally sets it up as like a comedy piece. So yeah, that's a really
Yeah,
good point.
I will say, like, I know you are usually the one to say that the skits are not your favorite part, but I enjoy that intro, but
Yep.
it is very long. Like,
Right, right.
yeah,
Yep. That is my only complaint with it. It's like maybe a minute too long, but it's hilarious otherwise. It's just like, all right, wrap it up. But you kind of get the feeling like that was just a reflection of his like he could go to excess sometimes and like, kind of prod you on a little bit.
yep. I can
Um,
almost imagine like being in a room with him, like Riz is just sitting there, like, all right, let's just do this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, the live clip that comes in on what track is that? Brooklyn Zoo or no, not Brooklyn Zoo, 2. What's the one that's like 7 minutes long?
Oh man,
Um that
I know
is
what you're talking about.
yeah, hold on, I got the track list here. It's no, yeah, it is Brooklyn Zoo 2, Tiger Crane,
Yep, yep.
where it's like half studio and then half mishmash or like some part mishmash and then live part at the end where he's just like talking to the crowd and like getting them hyped up and playing them and that yeah you kind of see pieces of that throughout the album, different spots.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, this like I will say that like one of the things about this album that is so exciting to me is that there is a lot of like so there's just so many elements of different things going on interwoven in and out of it. Like I feel like it is a classic album and people love it, but I feel like there's so much more going on than like meets the eye
Right.
sometimes because he's not like dropping like crazy serious bars most of the time,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Raekwon or yeah. So
Right. Yep. For yeah, any pieces or any songs that are barred out, it's not because of ODB generally.
no, not at all.
Right. Yep. Yep. Good point. When did you first encounter this album?
I would say I was probably around a similar age to the time of like, well, obviously not at the same time as 36 Chambers, but like kind of around those years, basically. I
Okay.
was pretty young because I do remember my brother having this album, and like I remember hearing it and being like, I know I'm not supposed to be listening to this.
Oh, okay. That's hilarious. All
Yeah.
right. All
And I
right. So,
remember the album cover pretty clearly
yeah.
actually back then. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Me too. That's like um, pretty much all I remember. I was maybe 11 or 12. Um, in I think in like a friend's older brother's car parked in the driveway, like flipping through his CD book, like seeing what, the friend's older brother had. And I think
Yeah.
this had like recently come out and I had no idea what to think. And even I think I remember seeing the album cover in a Columbia House catalog. Do you remember those at all?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah, you get like the 10 CDs for a penny or something like that, and then they'd like come after you on the phone trying to trying to
Yep.
figure out how to make it up. Um, I definitely remember like I would just like pour over those, just like lusting over every album cover that looked vaguely dangerous or intriguing. And I remember thinking 36 chambers was like a reference to like jail chambers or like prison chambers.
Oh yeah, for
So I
sure.
thought he
Okay.
was like back to the chambers, which, not far from the truth for ODB, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't, I don't think I heard even Shimmy Shimmy Ya until much later.
Okay.
So this is like, I think I heard, Got Your Money even before then. And so, yeah, ODB just generally has come later for me. I think it's because by the time I really got into Woo, he had already passed. And so
Yeah.
like the albums that I had starting off didn't really have him that much. Like Wu-Tang Forever, he has like one verse that he raps over the phone from prison.
Yep.
And then like Eight Diagrams, I don't think he's on there at all, or if he is, no, because he I think he had already passed by then. Iron Flag, I don't think he's on that either. Um,
No, I believe that was a little bit before he passed. I think it
yeah,
was like right before, basically, from what I
yeah,
remember. Yeah.
yeah. I think Iron Flag came out like around 2001. Yeah, and
Yep.
they brought in Flavor Flav to kind of do the like silly hype man stuff that ODB would have done.
That's
um,
right.
on one of the tracks, and then maybe like another part of another track.
Oh,
Um,
not to cut you off, but I just saw like a reel on the social networks, and he Flavor Flav saying that he talking about meeting ODB and like knowing him, and then he claims that his cousins are ODB, RZA, and Jizza. I don't know how true that actually is,
yeah,
but if it was true, that would be crazy because the Staten Island Long Island connection.
yeah.
Yeah,
So Flavor Flav says that he is cousins with those three.
yeah. He was like, you know what? Some of my cousins are in Wu-Tang.
Interesting.
And I was like, I don't know how true that is, but I hope it
Yeah.
is, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no disputing that those three are cousins. So, if he's
Yeah,
cousins with one of them, I guess he's cousins with all of them.
for sure.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, so my introduction to ODB was a little delayed, but definitely appreciate everything, his genius, really, what he brought to the clan and to just music in general, hip hop or otherwise. He actually had a hand in some pretty big pop hits as well. So just really made his mark, of course. Um, but should we get into the beats, bars, and top tracks? Anything else you want to add?
No. I think we can jump into that.
Okay. So beats, bars, and top tracks. We are gonna switch things up a little bit moving forward. So we've been doing a like a 0 to 10 scale for how we rank things, and just to be clever, we're gonna do 0 to 36 chambers. So we will start with the beats and tell me what you think about the beats on this album, which ones you like, which ones are memorable, what you notice, all your observations from your brilliant musical drummer mind.
Oh, geez. Um, well, thank you. That was flattering.
How's that for a hype job?
That was good. I I would say Flavor Flav, look out. Um, but I gotta say, obviously, Shimmy Shimmy Ya is like a classic. Like that beat, everyone knows it. I know a handful of people that know how to play only that thing on piano. Like, um, I mean, yeah, that beat, you could hear that and instantly. I think almost anybody, even if they don't know what it is or who it is or anything about Wu-Tang Clan, they know that song,
Yep.
and it goes old, young. It's timeless. I think personally,
Yep.
you know, um, the singles are two songs that like, yeah, those beats. I mean, they're not crazy, but they as soon as I hear them, I get in the mood and I dance and I love it. Uh,
Brooklyn
um,
Zoo actually is crazy to me. Like I can't wrap my head around that. Like for some reason, differentiating between the first and last chord, like I can barely figure out where the chord progression starts and ends. And I don't know if that's just me not being observant or if it's like the detuned chords or like how about you? Like is it easy? Like does it make perfect
no,
sense to you?
it doesn't, and that is like one thing that I've kind of like when I do sit down and make beats. I haven't done it as much in a while, but one thing I really got into through like RZA and like Madlib and people like that is like looping and cutting things
Yeah.
and Dilla. But
Yeah.
but like the way RZA does it, sometimes I'm just like it and DJ Muggs does kind of a similar thing from Cypress Hill where they like cut it at such a weird part that I'm just like, I don't understand time wise like quite how that works, but it works for some reason in a 4/4 context, and it shouldn't. You
Right.
know,
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't know. It
Yeah.
almost creates
Yeah.
like a merry-go-round effect in a way.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And this one
yeah.
actually
No,
I
that's the
I
only way I
wouldn't
can really think about it.
right. Yeah, that's a good analogy. This one I was surprised is actually ODB and True Master who produced this one.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, for
Oh, I
Brooklyn
guess I
Zoo.
did know that. I have the Yeah, I have the info right here. Duh.
Yeah. Right. But I mean
No,
I think probably True Master learned a lot from RZA. But I could be just making that up. But I mean it doesn't sound like it wouldn't be a RZA beat, like it could. I think this whole album like flows as if it had one producer, even with, the four or five who are listed.
no, it's 100% true. Like I said, I didn't really realize a lot of this information until I started having to read about it.
Yeah.
Um, and I do feel like you can hear some of like you can definitely hear RZA influence in all the people that kind of came up under him as far as production
Right.
or
Yep.
just were around him and affiliated with him. I mean, how
Yep.
could you not? He definitely invented a sound. So,
Right. Right. Totally. No doubt about that.
yeah.
So Shimmy Shimmy Ya, Brooklyn Zoo. Any others that are your favorite
Uh,
for beats?
I mean, I guess it's like this is one that you totally might. I mean, this is a tough choice because it goes between two for me for the last part, and that Brooklyn Zoo part two, the Tiger Crane one. I just love that song. Like that one always gets me. But Stomp, like that one, that if I'm gonna pick a beat, I think I would say that because that's just such a hype. Like that whole song is super just aggressive, and that beat is really aggressive. It gives me like I was in my car listening to it, and I was just like I wanted to like stomp through the floor of my car.
Yep.
I was like
Yep.
dancing and driving, talking more about Brooklyn Zoo, the second or the part two, anyways.
Yeah. That's interesting because Stomp and Brooklyn
Yeah,
Zoo,
that's all I got.
yeah, those were both co-produced by ODB. So two of the ones that you really like were ODB, and I didn't even know that he did any producing.
I didn't either. Yeah, I'm I'm actually yeah, no, it says Jones. That doesn't
Yeah.
say any other names. Dang. Okay. It does say RZA co-produced, but I'm sure RZA
Yeah.
was just like, all right, I gotta make sense of this
Right,
game.
right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are you ready to assign a score to the beats on a scale of 0 to 36 chambers?
Yeah, I'll say 28.
You said 28 on a scale of 0 to 36 for beats.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 28. I think that's a fair rating. I was saying I couldn't make it to the 36 chamber because I died before the end.
Okay.
So
All right. That sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I haven't even uh really come to a final conclusion for what I think, so I'm gonna need to talk through it a little bit. But
nah,
I like the production on this album quite a bit because I think it's like true to its title in some ways. It feels like a continuation or a return to the sound of Enter the 36 Chambers after Method Man's Tikal had a slightly different feel to it.
for sure, that is actually a really, really good point. Yeah.
Like just really gritty beats like the detuned piano and like piano like you mentioned the piano loops with like shimmy shimmy yeah of course like one of the
Hmm.
most iconic piano loops I think that there is and Hippo to the Hoppa, Cutting Heads, Brooklyn Zoo, like I think is that piano that or some type of similar instrument,
Yeah.
you think it is?
Yeah. I've always kind of thought it was piano, but yeah,
Okay.
it might just be something similar, and then maybe they messed with the sound of it.
Right. Um, but Hippo to Hoppa, I love that beat and I like that one because it's got some like really distinct parts. So it's got the intro with the like piano dun, 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 and then the verse goes into kind of a blues almost feel. Like it kind of reminds me a little bit of slow blues from the Wu-Tang meets the indie culture beat, or the album from Slow Blue, or oh my gosh, the it kind of reminds me of the beat from Slow Blues from Wu-Tang meets the indie culture album. Um, and
Oh
then
yeah, yeah,
yeah, and then it has in the chorus it has like those horn blasts, and then
yeah.
at the end it goes back to that catchy piano intro. Well, I guess it's an outro now. Um, my only complaint is like a couple of the songs go just like a little too long with just the beat going and like no rapping over it. Like that one in particular goes for like a minute, with just the instrumentals. What else does? I think is it
I can
Brooklyn Zoo, maybe. One of the early songs also goes pretty long
I
after the
think it
lyrics
might be
stop.
Brooklyn too. Yeah, yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. There's yeah.
Yeah, but they're really good beats. A couple of them kind of remind me of different solo album, like Rawhide kind of gave me a little bit of a Liquid Swords type vibe. Um, I think one of them reminded me a little bit of Only Built for Cuban Links, but now I'm forgetting which one. Um, but in general, I like them a lot. Um, I don't really have anything super inside. Well, I guess I kind of feel like in general for beats wise, um, no, actually, I'm gonna save that for like the cohesiveness because I was gonna say like RZA kind of tried to match ODB's style or like kind of frenetic or like all over the place-ness with this album structure a little bit.
For sure. Like, yeah, no, it totally encapsulates like his personality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I'm gonna say I feel similar to you in terms of the beats. I like most of them quite a bit. Some of them are kind of like, I'm just not crazy about them, but in general, they're all quite good. I'm gonna give it a 31 out of 36, so very
All right.
similar.
All right.
All right. 31 out of 36 chambers from me, 28 out of 36 for you. Let's go to bars and talk about lyrics versus wordplay, storytelling style, all that stuff. So, let's hear your reflection on bars first.
This is kind of a similar to the Beats type thing where it like when you listen to this record, you cannot listen to it like you would listen to a Nas record or like you
Right.
know, like any rapper from that era who like that era was all about bars. Um and shiny outfits so sometimes. But but
Yep.
uh anyways, yeah, no, you definitely like this record is an experience. There's definitely an underlying theme here of like it's supposed to be fun. It's kind of bringing it back to like when hip hop was kind of in the streets and not mainstream yet or not anything really yet, just a culture, just a budding culture at that. Where yeah, it makes you have fun. It makes you laugh. It makes you enjoy yourself, and like it kind of brings me back to like I was saying when my family would listen to comedy records. Like I remember a time and a place when I would just lay and listen to a record, and there was no phone screen in front of me, and there was nothing. You
Right.
know, the
Yeah.
TV might be on mute,
It
or the
it
video.
definitely it can keep your attention. It can keep my attention at least.
For sure. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
definitely does. So that's like before I dive into bars, I will say like I feel like even like the barred up rappers that are on this record were definitely having more fun just rapping than they would have normally just been so serious and writing like the most serious bars on their own records or on like one of the other records, you know.
Yep.
So that I guess I kind of appreciate that a little bit to just see like them step out of their personality and out of their element to just be them, like to be more of them like selves and vulnerable enough to just have fun. And even
Right.
Jizza, like is his verse is good, but like he's it sounds more to me like he's just having fun.
Yep. totally.
and just rapping with his cousin, you know, like,
Yeah,
and I
right.
think, yeah, and I think that that is really cool that I feel like ODB just kind of had that personality that brought that out in people where he would come into the room and they'd be all serious about something. He'd be like, I know who you really are, you know, like, no
Right.
bullshit. Yeah. So
Right.
I get that out of the bars on this record. And I think that is important to, yeah, I would have to say my overall score as far as bars go would have to be like a 28-30 kind of thing,
Hmm.
but that's totally based on the fact that it's just they're more enjoyable. Like I'm not
Yep.
digging deep into them. I
Yep.
know I keep repeating myself, I'm sorry. But
No, you're making good points.
yeah, I just want the listeners to know that I'm not crazy.
Yep. I know you don't have a ton of notes in front of you, but are there any like like lyrical moments that really stand out to you from this album that like any lines that you're like, oh, that's hilarious or that's like insightful or verses that you remember really liking?
I can't think of like verses off the top of my head, but I do remember when I was like really having to think about this. Masakilla
Yep.
on Snakes. I
Yep.
really like his verse on that song.
Yep.
I really liked Method Man's verse, but Method Man, especially like I think we've talked about this. Method Man has gotten better with age
Yep.
as far as like writing goes, but back then he had a good lyrical style. Like he was, you know, he was complicated lyrically, but he was also just a lot of fun back then.
Exactly.
Like his, yeah, like his references and stuff were always kind of what like made him pop and made him stand out. And
Yep.
then the Brooklyn Zoo too. I just like that whole song. I think that
Yep.
everyone's verses on there are really good. And I mean, they're not like super outstanding, but they're just all really solid.
Are you talking Protect Your Neck to the Zoo? The one that
Yes,
has, yeah.
that's the one I
Yep.
meant to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But Brooklyn Zoo too has Ghostface.
Ghostface.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, actually, yes, because that I remember that verse, like listening to that recently and being like, just Ghostface in general.
Yep.
It's just like he could be saying anything.
Right.
it's
We're-
it's the way he says
Right.
it.
Yes, exactly. When
Yeah,
he mentions something about Keystone, it's like Keystone Cops or Keystone Capers. Like every time he says that, it sounds good, and he says that a lot.
yeah.
It's like, it's like Wallabies. Like he knows what words sound good for him to say, and he makes sure he peppers like every other song with them.
It's so true.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'll give it a 30. I'll give it a 30 as far as bars
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. That sounds good. Well, yeah, I don't have good notes for this, and I know I'm not going to do it justice for all the moments that I enjoy lyrically and vocal wise and just bar wise in general. Um, I will say one of the things that I never fully appreciated until recently, and I've spent many quite a few years now listening to Shimmy Shimmy Ya, but that line, "Give me the mic so I can take it away," like it never fully dawned on me how genius that line is because the first time I heard it, I was like, "Wait, give me the mic so I can take it away." Like, are you giving it to me or am I taking it? Like, I only thought
Yeah.
of it in that term, but then there's like you know, take it away, Russell. Like, the like, give me the mic so I can take it away. Um, and just, that kind of like ambiguity wordplay. I just love that kind of stuff. Um, Damage, as you mentioned, with Jizza, like that back and forth that they do. It's really cool. Like, it's fun. It makes me wonder if that was maybe a song that they had already like done from years ago when they were like the All In Together Now crew, like him
Yeah.
and just because it's so natural and it kind of has that like playful feel to it, like hanging out with cousins and like shooting bars back and forth. Um,
It has a
and
similar feel to the hook from what's the song from Liquid Swords? Ding, 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 the
oh,
opening
right,
track.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
the MCs came to live out the name. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, totally. So yeah, that one is for a long time, and even still, I sometimes can't tell who's rapping. Like the lines bleed together, and I'm like, is it Jizza or is it ODB or is it Jizza kind of sounding like ODB, like accentuating? And they're cousins, so like maybe that's part of it, but still, like, is it obvious to you listening to that song, like whose lines are whose?
I was actually thinking, like, so I hadn't listened to this record in a while, actually. Like, I mean, occasionally I throw it on, but like, I hadn't really like sat down and listened to it like quite like I had for the last couple weeks, and I had the same kind of feeling. I was just like, man, this is weird. Like, I
Right.
feel like they were having so much fun doing that that they were like kind of almost probably like he was probably mocking them at certain points.
And then it's further complicated by the fact that ODB does like the lines himself later on in Brooklyn Zoo. He does like
Yeah,
the Panama like aspect of it, a couple lines. Um, so yeah, it's fun, but a little confusing. Um, but very fun, cool song. There was something else I was gonna say about it, but now it's eluding me. Um, I got nothing. All right. Moving on. Uh, Cutting Heads. I like that one a lot too. It's the same kind of feel, like the back and forth with RZA. And Cutting Heads came from the Wu-Tang demo, the 1992 Wu-Tang demo. So you can listen to that on YouTube, to hear a little bit more raw version of it. But it's cool to see that kind of reappropriated into the form that it is here, like a little bit cleaned up, and just like solid piano loop and just bar back and forth. Um, Hippo to the Hoppa, that's got a lot of fun lines. I, we talked about this a little bit in our last episode, Selling My Soul, how Mastakilla basically just did like verbatim Dirty Soul, like rapping like maybe the first several line first couple verses of that song. Do you remember that?
hmm
Yeah. It's just,
yeah.
yeah, like uh deja vu. Um, but it's also, I was gonna say one other thing about that song. Um, oh, not only does Mastakilla like just, take the same lyrics from Hippa da Hoppa, but he also emulates some of the parts from the another ODB song on this album, Drunk Game, where he's mentioning like the Temptations and Diana Ross and Michael
Yeah.
Jackson. And Mastakilla does the same thing on Dirty Soul. He's talking about James Brown and all his favorite soul singers, which I did not put two and two together the first time listening to that.
I actually did when we did that. I remember thinking that, and then I actually, you just kind of made me remember that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
He really thought about that track a lot, actually. I feel like
right.
he did
Yeah.
some justice to the name of
Yeah.
ODB.
Right. It was definitely an homage, an homage. What do you say, homage or homage, or different depending on the circumstance?
I think I probably would have said homage when I was younger, and now that I'm older, I would say homage.
Okay. Whatever it is, yeah. Fun to connect the dots with that track. Don't you know, it has some very funny parts. I'm not super into the first verse, but then I mean it's fine. But then when Killa Priest gets in, I met a girl named Shonda from way down yonder. Apple of my eye, had a Snapple and some fries. Forgot the
Yeah,
ketchup. That's when I pressed up. That really starts getting the track going, and then ODB with that last part, just they're fragile as eggs.
Yeah.
And then part two coming up, he kind of leaves us hanging there because I they do they ever come back to it? I don't remember it.
I don't think so. No, I think it kind of just like drifts
Use
off
your
into it.
imagination.
Yeah, basically.
Oh man, yeah. So that song is definitely like you were talking about the comedy elements of it, where it's like um there are definitely moments where I don't want to listen, like I don't need to hear ODB like simulating orgasm. I'm like, stop, make this stop. Like drunk game. I don't think there are many scenarios where I want to listen to that song and listen to him climaxing.
For sure.
Um, but other than that, there's lots of good stuff. Lots of good one-liners. And then as you mentioned, the Protect Your Neck to the Zoo with all those like kind of lesser known rappers, Buddha Monk, Prodigal Son, Zookeeper, Murdoch, Killer Priest, 12 o'clock, 60-second Assassin, someone named Shorty Shitstain. What?
Yeah.
I guess that's a Brooklyn Zoo member.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, yeah, like I said, I'm not doing this album just or not doing the bars justice. But I'd like them quite a bit. I guess maybe if I have to back up a little bit, Rawhide. I don't. It's not bars. I guess it's kind of beats or production, but the Rastafarian, like the female Rasta type vocals at the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Definitely like cool, kind of creepy, cool vibe. I don't know what the story is with that. Do you know anything about that or who's doing that or if it's sampled or anything like that?
No, I don't, but I should further look into that actually.
Well, yeah. On Genius, it just says the intro is ODB plus some Caribbean woman. All right. Not a lot of
Uh,
insight there.
no, and that very well could have been like a real thing.
Right, yeah, right.
I
Um,
mean, who knows? Who
exactly.
knows what happened during the production of this album?
Yeah, for real. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you could make a movie honestly based on the just the making of this album.
Yeah.
You know,
So
just
you probably know the history a little better than I do, like where this fits. You're familiar with like the flood in Riz's basement.
oh
Um,
yeah, yeah,
did
that.
this was this before that?
So from what I understand, the yeah, I think it was definitely around that time because I know that the flood happened around the time that the solo records started coming out,
Right.
or we're in production, I should say, not coming out, but
Yeah.
because those are two totally different things.
Yeah.
But
True.
but
True.
yeah, yeah. But I think this may have been a part of it because I do know that those first the records we've covered already, and obviously Inspection Deck got screwed
Yeah.
out of that
Right.
like probably the hardest.
Right. Yeah.
Um, well, I shouldn't say that because you got also got screwed out of that, but uh, yeah, I think that I remember that all had like them talking about how they after that they all had to kind of basically like you'll hear beats on each one of those records that sound like they should be on another one because of that reason basically because they were all kind of like well I need this beat because I got to finish my record and I actually have something written for it, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
sure this record is filled with a lot of that as well. I mean, you kind of were talking about that earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, and just because you said Inspector Deck, it jogged my memory. Did you hear just announced yesterday Czarface signed to Virgin Music?
I did.
Yeah. That's kind of wild. I feel like it's been a minute since Wu-Tang was like major label. Like, I mean, the whole record industry has changed a lot, but it's been a lot more like independent stuff for, GZA and You Got on like Baby Grand and just
Yeah,
so kind of cool to see like Wu-Tang getting bigger recognition again.
for sure. Actually, I've noticed because one of my jobs, I work in a bar for
Yep.
one of my jobs, and I see a lot of very young people and old people as well, and I see a lot of Wu Tang shirts on everybody,
Yep. Yeah.
and that part of the job is pretty cool. Like,
Yeah. Right.
just
Yeah. There's
yeah,
definitely been like I don't know if it's a resurgence but it seems like a renewed interest. Um, just I don't maybe with like, generations like our generation, getting a little older, having more expendable income, or I don't know what
mm,
it was. But, it's not like they ever went away and they did, kept touring. But, like with the new tour with Nas, I think that's been selling well. Probably the Hulu show helped also.
definitely helped. I feel like, especially the one cool thing that they really did with that show that I think helps a lot too is that, not to get off topic, but they, at the end of every show, they have a clip of all the actors rapping the verses and like jumping around and listening to the music. And
Okay.
that to me is really cool. And I didn't really think about it a lot the first couple times I watched it, but once I started seeing younger people get
Yeah.
into it, I was like, oh, that's a way for them to see like that's like us, you
Yep.
know? And I
Yeah.
was like, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's yeah, and it's like with that renewed or that like really currently high level of interest in Wu-Tang, it's cool that Inspected X like been able to keep being productive with Czarface and they're able to like either be buoyed off the Wu-Tang recent Wu-Tang success and interest, but
for
also
sure.
they've put in many hours of blood, sweat, and tears into their music. And I don't know, what are they on like their eighth release now or something? Like they've just been super productive.
Yeah, it's crazy because I kind of remember first hearing about them quite a while ago, but
Yeah.
now, but like even then, it hasn't been that many years, and I feel like they're just very consistent. Like they just consistently put things out,
Yeah.
and their content is great. Like the music's great. I like the comic book element of it. I like the fact that they did the comic book and all that kind of stuff too. So
Yeah. We need to do some Czarface episodes eventually.
I'm
Um,
pretty down for that, actually. Yeah,
I way underestimated when I said eight. I thought that was like a generous. So they've put out one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11 full lengths, 11 studio albums, two EPs. That's just ridiculous. Like, and that's just since 2013. So 10 years and they've done
crazy.
all that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
the age of home production isn't a
right.
terrible thing for artists.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. If
Yeah,
if you got the motivation, yeah, totally.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and the know-how and can pull it off. But yeah, that's a good point. So anyways, we little detour there, but congrats to Czarface on signing with Virgin.
Yeah.
Hopefully good things coming from them. Let me get back to my score on bars. Um yeah, it's not super barred out, but I do in general like it quite a bit. I'm gonna give it 31 also.
Okay.
Just because I feel like it's pretty matched. There's a couple things that I don't love, but love no Drunk Game is the only like song that I'll basically skip because of the lyrical, or I don't even want to call it lyrical, just the vocal content of it. Um, so yeah,
That's
in
fair.
general, I like it. All right, let's get to overall score and just talk about cohesiveness, guests, production, all things considered, how you find it and how you'd score it.
Ooh. Well, especially after this conversation, my score is a little more definitive
Okay.
than it was at the beginning of this.
Okay.
Uh, I would have to say, before I give the score, I would have to say that thinking about what you said too, this record definitely is the one that reaches the most back to the 36 Chamber album, as the title kind of says.
Right.
Um, and also is, I would say, had to have in certain ways been probably easier to make because it was just known that it was going to be ODB's debut record. So,
Yeah.
like, I would say making a record like Liquid Swords or making a record like The Purple Tape or any, Tikal or anything, like, there was probably a little more pressure to make those records represent the people and the concepts
Yep.
because they're definitely more intricate. And then, but this one to me, like, I feel like production wise, especially like I said, especially thinking about what you said, is kind of like it is a masterpiece in certain ways. I mean,
Yep.
there's flaws in the masterpiece, but
Yep.
it's the same thing with 36 Chambers, but they got us all with that record, So
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point. Um, you know what? You can tell I'm rusty. I totally skipped top tracks of the Beats bars and top tracks section.
Oh
So
shoot.
before you finish your thought on overall score, let's dive in and to just talk about what tracks you really love, which ones you would consider picking your favorite, and then which one you would deem the top track.
All right.
Go for it.
Uh, all right. Um, yeah, I would have to say the protect your neck is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Uh,
Protect your
um,
neck to the zoo.
yeah, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yep. And then I would have to say I do love Snakes. I think that
Yep.
one is one of my favorites. Actually, you keep mentioning it, and I haven't mentioned it once, which is funny to me because I actually love that song. Is Hippa to the Hoppa.
Okay. Yep.
It's
Yep.
just, yeah, that one always gets me the hook, especially. It's
Yeah.
just
Yep.
so comical.
Yep.
I would say those are probably three of my favorites on here. I mean, it's hard to say because I would say this record especially, I enjoy all the way through usually.
Okay. Yep.
Uh, so, gosh, you're good. This is tough. This part is actually kind of tough for me.
Pressure's on. Got to live with your decision, or
uh,
record yourself making an edit and send it to me, and I'll reinsert it somewhere.
no, I'll do it. I'll do it. I would have to say my top track. It's so hard on this one, but is probably the Protect Your Neck to the Zoo.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I like that one a lot too. And especially I just like hearing those, different voices that we don't always hear and they're just kind of darting in and out. Like they're a little bit shorter verses, but they're pretty aggressive. What are some of the things you like about it?
Exactly what you just said. Honestly,
Okay.
I like the fact that it's like this is going to sound so corny, but this record is still punk rock.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're exactly right with that song, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like the fact that the verses they sound like they're about to get really barred out and then they just kind of like they flow with ODB like they do
Yeah.
the whole like he always sounds like he's about to say something more than what he's going to say.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's really what gets me about that song is just the fact that it perfectly works for him. The beat is a cold beat.
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. All right, cool. So my top track, I already know easily what it is, but there are a lot of really good contenders, like because they're just really good songs. Like Shimmy Shimmy Ya, you gotta love that song. I actually don't know anyone who doesn't love that song. Um, and if it wasn't for other aspects of different songs that I like more, I would probably say that's one of the definitely one of the top tracks on the album. And then Brooklyn Zoo with that kind of mind-bending sample or that mind-bending beat. That's kind of an earworm. So
Hmm.
that's in there. Those two singles, of course. Um, the for me, I think you could guess I'm going to pick a posse cut for my top track. And, it really comes down to, is it going to be Protect Your Neck to the Zoo or Rawhide or, I guess, Snakes, or those are kind of the main posse cuts. Although, wait a minute, I guess Rawhide technically, does that only have Method Man and Raekwon? No, let me see. I don't want to be wrong about that. Rawhide. I know it has those two, obviously, but for some reason, ODB. Oh, well, it had some Caribbean woman, of course. I guess she gets counted in the posse. Uh, ODB, Method Man, Raekwon. I don't know. Is three a posse? Three's company, but is three a posse?
Ooh, I don't know. Actually, that's a good question. I don't technically know what makes a posse
Um,
besides a group of people.
well, Rawhide, I like Rawhide. I like Protect Your Neck. But like no doubt in my mind, Snakes is my top track, and that's because you've got you start out with that kung fu clip, the Killa Priest monologue at the beginning is just like gives it kind of a cinematic feel, kind of
Yeah,
talking about the snakes and um, his kind of raspy voice like serpents out there. They slither in the streets of Brooklyn, New York, slither in the streets of Manhattan. Just love the setup in that song. And then as he's talking, that beat, that that bass is so just kind of menacing. The doo 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 doo. Like it definitely feels like snakes like darting in and out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the soul sample that as far as I'm aware, is the first instance ever in the history of the world of chipmunk soul, that sped up soul sample on snakes. So, all the imitators who came after, and I have no beef with any of them. I love chipmunk soul, like whoever makes it.
Yeah, yeah.
All came from this track, RZA making it happen. And then, the fact that it's got these great verses from this posse of Killa Priest, RZA, Master Killa, and one of my favorite parts about this song, one of my favorite aspects of this song is that, like I was complaining about some of the songs where there's just like after the last verse ends, there's like a minute of just instrumentals, and it's fine, but I don't need to listen to a minute of that. This
Hmm.
song, when there's like 50 seconds or less left, and in all the other songs that would have been over, all of a sudden here comes Buddha Monk with this little mini verse, and it's like as long as You God's verses on 36 Chamber.
Yeah, yeah.
um, so it just like comes in right as the song is ending, to do this verse. I just love that he's squeezed in there, and so you end up with a fifth verse, in what would have been kind of dead space on a lot of the other songs. Um, and just like you mentioned, the Masta Killa verse on this song, I love that. Bad Rude Boy from the land of Jamaica. I love his style of rhymes on this. He's so inimitable. Like no one can put their rhymes in such strange places as Mastakilla, as far as
Yeah,
I'm aware. You
for
just don't know
sure.
where he's gonna go. Like
No,
to receive the gold that he couldn't achieve in his country, even though he sold mad weed for the next man who was the Don of the clan. Like, yeah, the way he does it, it's really interesting.
it
Um,
definitely is. His cadence is
his
definitely,
cadence. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And then ODB. it's barely a verse. It's because he comes in with that bad Leroy Brown, which is, he's interpolating that like oldie. Sorry, I don't even know what you call it. But it's like a folk. Yeah, it's like a folk song, basically, that bad
Yeah,
Leroy Brown. But it works so well with the bass line, like the cadence that ODB puts on top of that. Of bad. I love it. It's badder than the deep blue sea. He
yeah.
changed, he changed badder than old King Kong, which I think you could say King Kong could be bad, but the deep blue sea, I never conceptualized that as being bad, but it somehow doesn't sound weird when he says it.
Not at
Um,
all.
and and then I love the end of it where he just kind of like sails off the deep end. Sometimes I get high with the meth, then I turn to the killer priest when it comes 12 o'clock. I turn into
Yeah.
the demon beast. I just love how he shouts 12 o'clock. Um, it like startles me sometimes. Like, oh, it's
Uh,
midnight.
uh,
So yeah, snakes. So I could talk about snakes all day. Like I just love, I mean, I think it needs a little bit more press. So maybe that's my mission is just to bring about more snakes awareness, how great that song is. So
yeah.
that's my top track, number one with the bullet. All right. So you've kind of given your overall assessment of the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to like wrap up your thoughts on that and then see if you can assign it an overall score?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I was essentially kind of just saying like how like maybe the production is it's much like the beats versus all the things I was saying about that. The production on this isn't perfect by any means, but it is
Hmm.
in a way that matches the person that the record was, for.
Right.
Uh and yeah, I mean, I don't know. The crazy thing too is this is a little bit of a side note is there's so many moments where you can like hear in ODB's flow that like this guy could actually like rap some bars, but he just decides to like shout things in the middle of his bars.
Right.
And dude, yeah, yeah, I love that too. I like it's like, man, you could really probably kill it if you wanted to.
Yep. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
like his like cultural references that he drops in there, like Method Man is probably more well known for it, but talking about like Cosby dropping babies, like that I think probably just goes over people's heads because they don't know that his character was an OBGYN and like delivers babies
yeah,
on the Cosbys. Was that I think I'm remembering that right. It was
that is completely right. Yeah,
okay.
I
Yeah.
man.
Um but yeah, things like that, like his genius, like it it was kind of like genius and madness, and I think a lot of people didn't appreciate the genius aspect or didn't at first recognize it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely, yeah. He was kind of a crazy genius in a lot of ways, and uh a lot of the things that he says definitely go over your head. It's like kind of like the uncle that makes the jokes that you don't get until you're
Right.
older. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh but overall score, I actually it's tough. I do want to give this record a 36, honestly.
Okay.
Like just because I thoroughly enjoy this record from front to back, like
Yep.
with all of its ridiculousness and everything. Like it's perfect for that person,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
it definitely like I would say this record is a classic
Yep.
and probably one that people who even aren't like huge Wu-Tang Clan fans would probably go out and buy.
Yeah. Totally
So
agree.
I will say I'm gonna give this record a 34.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you that like the whole thing is greater than the sum of its parts. Because like, we didn't give it that high of a score, but I would still also give it a higher score than either I gave the beats or the bars just because of like what it represents, both of who ODB was and just of what the artists were capable of. Um, so yeah, I definitely agree with that. And um, it's been a couple years listening to this. So I feel like there's more that I will still come to appreciate.
Hmm.
Um, I I actually, I'm generally not the biggest fan of skits, but I do think these are pretty good. They're pretty funny. Like the intro, introducing himself. I think it goes a little bit too long, but it's still funny. The What is it with ODB's wife and I think it was ODB's wife and the other woman like arguing about like
Oh
that
yeah,
was that don't you know?
look at
Yeah, I
his
think
disposition.
right
Yeah.
disposition. Yes, she recognized it is his disposition. That's what his whole allure is. It's his disposition. So that's the intro to Don't You Know? Um, but I love that it's kind of like self-effacing, self-deprecating because ODB's putting it on his own album where, the one is like calling him bummy and like you got mad sour flavor. So I thought that, yeah, that's really good. Um, the uh, yeah, I've said it like several times now, but um, I basically skip drunk game every time. Like I could see maybe it could be kind of funny, but it's just too much.
It's a
Um,
lot.
Sweet sugar pie, yeah. Um, but it's kind of funny. Like at the beginning, like he's just kind of like he didn't have a real plan going into the intro where he's like, see, my mama taught me this and my daddy learned from my mama, which is good, which is good. um, but that's that, maybe a skippable moment. Um, and then yeah, just a lot of really good beats, very Enter the 36 chambery. Um, and great set of uh, guests or
Mhm.
affiliates. A lot more diverse than a lot of the Wu-Tang solo albums because ODB had the Brooklyn Zoo contingent to bring on and brought on Wu-Tang members RZA, GZA, Ghostface Killah, Raekwon, um, Masta Killa. Um, feel like I'm missing one other person, but anyways, brought on a lot of the clan and people who were less well known. So definitely cool in that regard. And like I said, it has a good cohesiveness, even though there are a couple different producers. I think it has a pretty good, pretty solid flow. Um, and not like a story tying it together necessarily, but it's just kind of like a reflection of ODB kind of being all over the place.
Yep.
Um, and like what do you think about is it Protect Your Neck to the Zoo? No. Brooklyn Zoo 2, where they do that part where it like calls back a lot of the earlier like moments in the album. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like brings in little clips of that. I don't know, it's kind of cool. What do you think of that? I guess that
Uh,
that song in general is like kind of a lot. It's like 7 minutes and 20 seconds. It's got
that's
that.
super long.
Yeah. It's got the
Yeah,
live part.
I like it. It's one of those things. I feel like if I'm paying too much attention to it, I'm not going to enjoy it as if I'm just kind of casually listening to it, and I'm like, oh man, because then
Yeah.
it flows right into the next song, and I'm like, that happened to me actually because I was one of the times I was listening to this. I think I was like cooking and doing like the dishes at my house,
Yeah.
and I was just kind of listening to it and like vibing to it, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and then it goes right into the next one, and I was like, okay, that
Yeah.
was cool. But there
Yeah.
was a few other times where I was like, okay, I could do without that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think yeah, it's all in like how I guess how you're listening to it in the moment.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's kind of a cool thing. Oh, I was speaking of cool things. I mean, like with references, although this isn't a reference, the part in Shimmy Shimmy Ya with the backwards vocals, like the backtracked vocals, you know what I'm talking about?
oh
Or the
yeah.
played in reverse vocals.
Hmm.
Um, it's funny because like I feel like people give Missy Elliott a lot of credit for doing that same thing on Work It.
Hmm.
Um, but you don't hear, or I've never heard anyone say like, "Yo, ODB did that first." Although I don't know if he was the first to do it, but it's feels like a pretty similar thing. Am I wrong about that?
No, and I'm sure, and I honestly, I would be not surprised at all if Missy Elliott had somehow been inspired by ODB to do that because they're
Yeah,
from the same era, and I know
right.
that Missy Elliott is a huge hip hop, like obviously an artist, but also a huge fan. So
Yep. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I like Work It too a lot, and the way that she uses that same thing. But it was just didn't dawn on me until recently. Like, oh yeah, uh, people don't seem to like recognize this as much as kind of a similar thing. But I hear a lot of people talking about Missy Elliott's, which is fine. But just another cool thing that may have been the first time that it was used, but I mean, obviously not the first time in general. Like I know the Beatles used backwards recorded vocal or backwards recorded stuff, didn't they?
yeah, no, they definitely I think pioneered that. I don't know if they were the first to ever do it, but I know they pioneered
Yeah,
it a lot.
yeah.
And also the beat for Paul Revere is backwards
Oh,
by
oh
the
yeah,
Beastie Boys.
yeah, the symbol. Yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep. Good call.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, anyways, just I agree with you. The sum is great. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Whatever the phrase is, this
I know
album
what you mean.
it's better than just the beats and the bars that constitute it.
For
Um,
sure.
so
One of the
yeah.
best skits ever is the you all remember doing this when you were a little kid?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Right.
Because I did do that a lot as a little
Right.
kid.
Yep. And that is totally referenced on Wu-Tang Meets the Indie Culture. Do you remember that? They do on like a tribute to ODB.
I don't actually. Sadly,
Okay.
I don't remember that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have to
go
go back and listen.
yep, go check that out. Because they do track 9 is an ODB tribute where they I don't know if it's a sample of I felt like it was maybe someone recreating what ODB did, but I could be wrong now. I would have to listen to them back to back. But anyways, it's a nice I think it's a nice tribute to ODB where they use like a little sample of him and then I think like a Richard Pryor clip or something or
Oh yes, I do remember that now.
yeah.
Yeah, I believe it is a Richard Pryor. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so yeah, just interesting to see how this album, Return to the 36 Chambers, you know, gets referenced and pops up again just within Wu-Tang with Master Killa and Wu-Tang meets the indie culture and, probably many other ways that are just too numerous to identify all of them. But obviously very influential, very iconic. Did you say 34?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was gonna go with too, even before I heard you say it. So we are in 100% agreement. Not that that matters at all, but definitely, um, I think we could kind of get it in the same way at least.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I
Whew.
feel like we've been on the same page. Yeah, been on the same page for this one for the most part.
Yeah, because you could see how like there's just so much that could go over your head, or you could be like, I don't really, maybe that's the case with me and Drunk Game. Maybe I'll be like, oh, this is really funny and clever, and I like this. At some point, I don't know. I'll keep an open mind. Um, but yeah, just an album worth coming back to again and again, and so influential in so many ways. Anything else, just regarding this album in general that you've thought of or that we haven't touched on?
No, I think we've summed it up pretty well. Like, I think, yeah, this record, I can't even say it. I'm gonna screw it up, but it's greater than the sum of its parts. There we go. I said
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to say about it right now, but I know like soon, probably tonight, I'm gonna remember, oh, there's that hilarious line that I forgot to mention that I was planning on mentioning or something about it, just because there's so much to digest and consider when talking about this album. But we'll leave it at that. And if anyone has more reflections or observations, feel free to send us an email or comment on any of our Instagram posts. Um, on that note, I want to give a shout out slash apology to James Dixon. Do you know James Dixon?
I do not.
Okay, so we had a listener named James Dixon who wrote in, emailed us March 11th, and I honestly did not check our email until last week and replied like 7 months later. So
Okay.
sorry about that, James, if you're listening. He gave a recommendation for Supreme Clientele, which I
Ooh,
would be
okay.
down with.
Yeah.
Also said he's a fan of the Descendants, which is super awesome to hear.
Yes, it is.
Um, and also wanted to give a shout out to the kind folks at FeedSpot who listed us in their top 25 classic album podcasts. Very generous. But appreciate any folks out there sharing about our episodes or engaging with us, social media or otherwise. Um, I'm having a baby. Well, my wife is having a baby imminently, so I don't know when our next episode will be on my end. I know your life has a lot going on too, Andy. So I would like to get in some more episodes as soon as we're available. But are you down for that?
I am totally down for that. I've missed doing this a lot.
I hear you.
It's gonna be tough. I mean, it's more so for you probably, but we will try to make that happen.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
like to.
for sure. All right, cool. Well, that sounds great. So stay tuned. We will plan to be back with more Wu-Tang content soon. And until then, enjoy Return to the 36 Chambers and see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Right.
That was you've done that same bye before, and I love it. It's just kind of like you're throwing the bye out the window as we're passing on a train or something.
I always feel like like the family waving in the background at the end of the TV
Right.
show or something.